I was a football coach. I got fired. We were $500,000 in medical debt, so we got into a part-time sales business. That started the process.
Here he goes! Touchdown!
You work hard, you start building a brand, and people all of a sudden go, I want to work with that guy. Coaching football is a lot like running business. Companies that train consistently will always outperform companies that don't. People still need people. You're never going to get the same thing in a virtual environment.
Every dream has a price, and you'll pay one here. The difference is it's worth it.
Do you think we are out of salespeople, good salespeople in the next 5-10 years?
That is a very interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I do know this.
The value of focus cannot be undermined. Today I have a conversation with Joe Pici, which I think is the best person to talk about strategic momentum, focus, being vertical, staying niche, and the results of this approach on your business, on your personal life. Joe has been running his business for over 30 years, and I'll be honest with you, he has one of the most tightest operations out there, and I enjoyed a lot talking to a fellow who has the same approach as I do. And I think it's one of those conversations that can lead you to a better version of yourself and got you thinking about things that you maybe didn't realize you have in you or that are important to you. Thank you and enjoy the episode. This one is the broad question, right? But I specifically wanted to be broad. So Joe, who you are, what do you do?
You know, I'm Joe Pici, and what we do, we specialize in helping companies and individuals really focus on many ways of generating prospect leads, pick up the phone and book quality appointments. We do live outbound telephone call training. So we really have a craft to help people get in front of the highest paying revenue clients and decision makers. And then we increase closing ratios with consultative sales meetings, negotiation skills. So we teach the complete sales cycle, but we're more skill-based and application-based.
Okay. What's the name of the business?
Pici and Pici is our company.
Pici. Okay. So this is about the business, but in the business or like environment, like who you are as Joe Pici. Are you a main driver? Are you a creator? Are you a like strategist? Like who you are as the person within that like range of things that you guys do in your organization?
Absolutely. Well, you know, we own the company, so that means you wear many hats. But I do all the selling, I do all the lead gen, I do all the selling, but then I do all the training. So everything we train, coach, and speak on is what we do to grow our own business. Mm-hmm. And I would say I'm 80% tactician, 20% strategist. Okay? Mm-hmm. We help people roll up their sleeves and really execute tactics underneath the broad strategy of a sales process.
What was the pivotal moment in your life, or who was the pivotal person in your life that that got you into this industry or into Pici and Pici?
Well, it was kind of, I was a football coach. I got fired. We were $500,000 in medical debt, so we got into a part-time sales business. That started the process. We were looking for good information on selling, and most of it was strategy and motivation, which was good. So we had to really piece by piece learn the skills of selling. Because I work hard, we were able to erase all our debt. We were able to really travel the world, and then people want to know what we did. And then about 2000, so that's 30 years ago, about 2000, we saw a gap. That there were great speakers, coaches, and trainers in sales out there, but what we felt lacked a little bit were the actual skills. So Pici and Pici really arrived that we were going to help people learn and master skills of real selling.
Do you think that your successful business coaching career was kind of founded on the basics of the approaches or the mindset that you have in sport and
For sure.
that you have as the And can you speak to this, kind of paint for me, like what was that like to kind of coach the team? What skills you need to have? Like what is that like daily routine? I've done some sport, but I'm always like fascinated about the people that are running teams and coaching them, having many talented people that expect from you, like this is like the leadership in its pure form, right?
Right. Well, coaching football is a lot like running business. I mean, you've got your overarching the head coach, so to speak, who sets the policy and creates the vision. Has a lot to do with motivation and really process and procedures. And then you have your coordinators, right? You got your offensive coordinator, your defensive coordinator. These are like your strategists. They decide what offense you're going to run, what defense. And then you have your position coaches are teaching blocking and tackling and the skills. So a lot of that is the same in what I do. Here I have to set the strategy and the motivation for our business.
Right.
But then I also have to understand the business plan, really understand business planning and verticals and silos. But then I have to be able to, I believe for me, not for everybody, I will never speak or coach or train on anything I don't do myself. So I have to be doing the blocking and the tackling to be able to walk into a training room and execute training and impart that into those people in the room. So there's a lot of similarities between sports and business. And let's face it, you go to a business convention, they got a sports person. You go to a sports convention, they have a business person as a keynote speaker.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that we took from coaching into business that I believe has helped us.
If we go back, why did you choose coaching? What was that have you been always like good with people, or just it was like logical after doing sports? So like what was your like initial motive into actually starting into the coaching? And then just generally, like how long have you been doing the coaching?
Are you talking about coaching business or coaching?
Yes, the sport coaching, the football coaching.
All right. Oh, the sport. Well, what happened was I played college football, and then I got into construction, and I kind of missed it. And I was driving by a Little League field one night, and I looked over, and my wife said, you probably would like to help those kids out. And I walked on the field, and I volunteered, and I fell in love with it. And from that, I finished my degree, went back to college and started coaching high school. And then I moved into the college football coaching level. And so it really I backed into that profession and fell in love with it.
How long have you spent coaching?
I coached athletically for 20 years. I've been in the speaking, coaching, training, and selling business for 30 years. I'm old. I've had a lot of lifetimes.
I bet. And that's the reason why I really was excited about this conversation, just being able to tap into your experience, into the lifestyle, and just kind of understand, and learn from it. And what fascinates me is I remember the first time we spoke with you, you mentioned an interesting thing. You mentioned that you are not a life coach, you're a business coach, and these are two different things. So can you elaborate? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I have not been wired to be a life coach, okay? I think being a life coach takes tremendous amount of empathy in your heart, and we all have enough stuff going on, and I can't enter into a person's personal life and be effective as a business coach. I have to draw the line. There's an old adage that says familiarity breeds contempt. So if I'm coaching you in business, if I'm training you in a training room, we're doing private coaching and sales is tough. And so when I'm coaching people, it's business, it's straightforward, it's direct. And then all of a sudden we start moving into your personal stuff. Eventually I will lose my effectiveness as your business coach. So I draw a line. If people have personal issues, I recommend they go see a professional. Okay? When it comes to life coaching or whatever, I just rather stay on the business side.
Did you have that line from the start, or you kind of, ended up sort of like drawing that line in some years?
I started out this because of my background in coaching football. That line was never drawn because you're on the field coaching these college athletes, but then they walk into your office late at night with personal problems. Okay? When I got into business, I realized this is not going to be the case. I will go way above board on coaching them and training them in business. But the minute it spills into the personal, I just back off and I go, that's not my area of expertise.
So like having that clear, clean area of expertise is somehow as if you are going vertical, right? Or you're going very niche in a way. Is that the case?
That's a good, I am very vertical. Now, I don't niche who I do things for, I niche what I do. I'm not all things to all people. I'm not a marketing expert, okay? I'm not a branding expert. Our verticals are simple. We work with individuals, small, medium, and large companies on the processes, strategies, and skills for selling.
Right.
But we also have training for speakers, coaches, trainers, and consultants, not on how to speak, but how to monetize their business, how to run a good, profitable business. And so we teach people how to take their talent and intellectual property and make money with it. So that's very niche, right? What we do is niche, but we can do it for many, many people, companies, all different size companies and individuals.
Interesting. So, in a way, like you're not niching towards certain client or certain industry, but you're niching towards sort of like your value proposition, right? It's like
Exactly.
I wanted to.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do. So that allows us, like, for example, a couple times a year, we have a 3-day sales boot camp. In fact, Global Gurus has ranked our Rapport Mastery Sales Training Boot Camp #1 in the world for 4 straight years. Now, we only allow 24 people. We'll get 18 different industries. They'll have an accumulative target market of over 100 target markets. We put them through our process, and on day 3, we make live outbound calls. We've never done less than 75% conversion to appointment. We get through 92% of the gatekeepers. We get same-day return phone calls, and we close business. Not because I'm special, because the process works for anybody that wants to take their business outbound.
If we sit on this for a second, right? So what is being vertical? I wanted to kind of hear your thoughts on the subject. Like, what is, just to step back a bit, I think that not many people even that listening to this realize how important it is to be vertical, right? And how important it is to be focused. And sometimes you would say, well, Michael, we are vertical, but we have like 5 products, or hey, we are vertical, but we have this, or like in digital marketing, where we're doing lead generation, we're doing digital marketing, we're doing ads, we're doing SEO, etc. We are vertical, but is it vertical? So like, what is being vertical?
Well, to me, being vertical is once you determine what you do and who you do it for and what results you deliver, then you just start working in that area. And, what we didn't realize what happened when we started is that every day, every week, every month, every year that we stayed vertical, we got better. See, we thought it was just about helping the clients got better. We didn't realize that we were getting better in our ability to help our clients because we were so vertically focused, and everything is run on such a tight process that whether the economy is bad, whether it's good, whether people are sick, whether they're healthy, whether they have issues or not issues, we've been able to grow every year because we haven't gotten distracted.
This is important, right? This is why vertical is being important. Like, you're not distracted, right? You're like resilient. I remember I had a client that contacted my company, Belkins, specifically because when that client went on our website, he only saw appointment setting, and that's it. And he was like, I saw a lot of results. I saw a lot of case studies, a lot of testimonials, and just appointment setting. I didn't see consulting. I didn't see CRM implementation. I didn't see, some other things. I just did the appointment setting, and I like that because you guys are niche, and, niche is the king. What are the top 5 things I got if I am staying vertical? And then what are the downsizes? Maybe there's something that, staying vertical is not good.
That's a great question. Okay. I think one of the benefits of being vertical, okay, is that you now are viewed as an expert and not a general practitioner.
Right.
In the industry of consulting, training, whatever it is, most consultants go horizontal. They think by offering a lot of things, they don't leave any money on the table. Well, the negative side about doing that is you take on more competitors. Every vertical or every offering takes on a whole nother set of competitors. So one of the benefits by going vertical and getting better and developing a uniqueness is you can really get rid of some of your competitors.
Right.
Just by staying vertical over the long term, you're going to find a lot of your competitors aren't even in business after 3 or 4 years. And I'm not putting them down, but it's just a fact of life. The other thing about being vertical is you can get more done in less time. From the time I generate a lead and I make an outbound call and I move it into a core story or sales meeting, it takes me 7 minutes to get a proposal out. Okay? So my process is tight, all right, which means you get more done in less time, and you're still efficient and you're still consultative. I think a drawback to being vertical, okay, might be for creative people, they feel stifled. They get bored. They start looking over the fence and going, maybe I should be doing that. Maybe I'm not happy doing what I'm doing anymore. And I see that a lot. I see very creative people get very bored in going vertical. And doesn't make them bad people. It's just the way they're wired. Okay? So they like to have multiple things going. They like to have multiple businesses. They like to have multiple offerings, which is fine. It doesn't work for me because that's not my behavior style. My behavior style is very focused, and I don't get bored in doing repetitive tasks. So did I answer your question?
Yes. So just a few thoughts on the subject. So I also like to stay vertical and very focused. I agree with you 100%. I think that this approach, as you mentioned, it's very tight. And if it's tight, it means that it's efficient and it means that it worked before. So you've done that things hundreds of times. So you know all the in and outs. So if I come in and say, hey, Joe, can we do this? You say, yes, we can do that. It means that you have a proof of concept 500 times that it worked before. So that makes sense. So you're not tailoring your approach, because if your approach is tailored, then you cannot guarantee the same outcomes, right? Because something might go wrong with this equation, right? So I love that. But at the same time, because it is tight and it's the same, I know some companies that maybe a tight process couldn't work for, because that's not something that would work in their industry. Maybe that you need to be more creative, So that's why I think that the agencies with a very tight process usually operate at 95% success case, 90% success case, but that, 90%, but then there's always those 10% that it, work, sure. Not because the process wasn't tight enough, just because the whole concept of that structure methodology is not working for that specific business.
No, exactly. And I you're right. But I think we also have to decide, what do I want to do? What, in other words, what can I deliver time after time after time after time? Because it's not about me. It's about the client. And I don't need to be experimenting on the client's nickel. Okay?
That's true.
When I go in, I know what I can deliver. Now, if they don't want what I can deliver, they need to go somewhere else, because this is what I deliver. That's why, going back, If people want life coaching, I'm not the guy. You know what I mean? It's like I could do leadership training in my sleep. I don't do leadership training. I just don't do it. Could I do it? I could. Will I do it? No. Why? Because I decided that Joe Pici was not a household name. Okay? We had to build this business from the ground up and develop our brand. And I don't need to confuse people. You know, I don't need to have people go, what do they do? What I want them to know what we do is so clearly focused, because that's where referrals come from. If they know, if they can say to another person, I got the guy for you that can teach your people how to pick up the phone in real time and navigate the gatekeeper. I want them to know that, right? I mean, what you do is so powerful. Appointment setting is the hardest part of sales there is. That's just the way it is. To have a company that does that is brilliant. It is absolutely brilliant, because 95% of the people don't want to set appointments. They
Right.
just want to go do appointments, right?
Mm. Yeah.
So I would recommend for people, first decide what you want to do. And the other thing is, too, another benefit of vertical, to build a brand, people better know how to find you and what you do. And if they're confused, you're not going to grow a brand.
It's interesting because, you know, if you're not growing the brand, it means that you're not building the system, right? You're not building something that works without you, right? You're always going to have, Joe pushing the company, right? But the game here is to build the business that operates independently, right? And sort of like, and for that you need to have an offering. And in very often when I saw in personal coaching or even in business coaching, if there's no brand, there is like a kind of father of a brand, right? So it's like, I wanted to work with Joe. I don't work with Joe's team, right? Because I believe in Joe's and his ability, but that's not the business model, right? The business
Well,
model
and you're
is
exactly right. And when we first started, we built our number one company is Peachy and Peachy. And I will tell you, that's exactly what people want. They want to work with Joe. That's why we have a second business called sellmorevirtually.com, which is our scalable model. So we couldn't scale Peachy and Peachy, but we could scale a separate business that has very little time invested in it, right? But again, it's whenever you're starting a business and you're starting and you weren't a recognized entity before you started a business, you didn't play in the National Football League, you weren't the CEO of IBM, you didn't have mastery over social media, you're just some guy. You don't know all these things. So what do? You go to work, you work hard, you start building a brand, and people all of a sudden go, I want to work with that guy. They'll say, Joe, are you coming into our company? Well, that's good, but you build a mousetrap.
right.
So then when you start thinking about scalability, which is what you're talking about, that's a real entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is somebody who's always thinking, can this business scale?
Let's start with this. What is your like business mission or kind of business goal? Like, are you building a brand and a scale, or like are you helping as many customers as you can directly solve their problems? Like, can you paint for me just generally, like, so what's the, where you are at right now with Peachy? As you mentioned,
Okay, so yeah, our business model is one of, before COVID, if you were going to work with Peachy and Peachy, it would be you coming to our boot camps, or me going into corporate training, or me doing coaching. So our business model is growing from a standpoint of our boot camps are our favorite. That's my favorite thing to do. When people come into Florida, Orlando, they come to a training room, and for 3 days we're doing sales, and then the next 3 days is the business speaking, training, coaching. That's my favorite training. Then I'll go into corporations. But then so many corporations have seen, you know what? We don't want our people on airplanes. So they're doing more virtual training. You know, the airplane thing has gotten scary because airlines are just canceling flights for no reason.
Yeah.
And so what used to be common, where you'd go to the airport, jump on a plane, you knew you were going to get somewhere. They were going to fly people from all over the country into a central location. And now some of those people, they're missing their flights, and companies are spending, and now they're going, we need to look at other ways of doing things. So now we've created a licensing program whereby people will send people into our boot camp. We'll license them in our methodology. Then we'll do a train-the-trainer licensing program with those people, and they're allowed to train our intellectual property inside their company. So that's another direction we've headed.
Interesting. You mentioned COVID, right? I wanted to hear your thoughts on how is it different, the business coaching before, during, and after COVID, and how it is different? Is it harder? Is it like just because, like, you know, for me, when I was participating in this business coaching, you have people in the room, you have the energy going on, you have the networking connection, and now you have a Zoom or other virtual conference, and it's not the same level of energy. So what's your thoughts on that? Like, obviously it's efficient, but why, or is it better being virtual?
No, it's not better. It's worse. You're never going to get the same thing in a virtual environment. So therefore, when it comes to our sales training boot camp, I will not do that virtually. Because to do live outbound calls is the marquee part of that, plus the interaction. All right? Now, because we live in Florida, I never had to close down my boot camp because we only keep it to 24 people. So we've run our boot camp since 2004, a couple times a year. Virtual training will never be as good as live training. You miss so much interaction. You miss that question. You miss people going to lunch together. There's just an environment you can't. On Zoom, half the people are there, but they're looking at their phones. It's just different. So I'll do certain things on Zoom. I'll do some private stuff. I'll do group coaching, but it's more on communication styles, maybe customer service, but less on sales.
So do you think, and it's also interesting, so I have, my sales team works remotely, so they are all over the United States, Europe, etc. And I started hiring and bringing on people, salespeople, you know, working remotely, and I'm looking for people that are obviously experienced, but so it means that they already worked in some location in the office, they had that mentorship, so they are already experienced ones. But what is with the ones that are just starting out in sales, the juniors that work from home, right? And they don't have that vibe, that experience of being in the room with other salespeople, learning hands-on, etc. So do you think we're going to have a problem in a few years of all of these salespeople that are working from home and getting calls, and it's not the same?
Michael, we've already experienced a problem. It's not down the road, it's here. I see it because one company I work with is a trucking company. They do logistics, and they allowed their people to go home, right? And it's not the same because you and I know there's something about a bullpen atmosphere. There's the bell, there's the joking around, there's the internal competition, there's that esprit de corps, there's just something about it. And then you get people that not everybody is wired to work from home. I mean, the refrigerator's close, the TV is close, they got to walk the dog, they got to go get a haircut. And I believe very few people that are working remotely are really giving their boss an 8-hour day. Okay? And I'm not generalizing, I'm not saying they're not effective, I'm just saying something has been lost. Now I'm seeing some companies calling them back in and trying to regain that atmosphere. And 90% of our leads come from LinkedIn. So I see a lot of posting on LinkedIn, and there's two companies I'm watching, and one company has brought their sales team back in, their phone team, and the other one isn't, and this one here is thriving. Now, do the people like driving to work? Well, you know what? They did before, you know? And when you have to work in a remote environment like you do all over the world, that's what you have to do. Expectations and accountability and softwares to see if they're really working, all that stuff. But if you're asking me if there's going to be a problem, there already is a problem. And I believe finding quality salespeople that can really book appointments is the hardest thing to find in business today.
So what should business owners do? Would you recommend all of them just to get back their sales team in the office, get them together, get the working? Although some people won't like that, some people will complain, some people they need to let someone go, or trying to adapt and create the culture where you can develop some of that skill set remotely through additional training, through additional maybe self-managers, self-management systems, whatever. So if you were to recommend the right strategy.
Michael, I think everybody has to look at their business model and say, if I'm in the Tampa Bay area, if I'm in Orlando, and most of my sales team is local, why don't I bring them back in? But maybe you got somebody in Ohio, maybe you have somebody in Las Vegas, you can't bring them in. But what's important is that you have that twice a week meeting where whether it's Zoom, everybody's in there and you're going over some numbers and you're maybe challenging people and doing some motivational stuff. I think people still need people. And again, the isolation thing, although it sounds so good, all right, all of a sudden the kids that were fun to be around all day, now it's not so much fun. Now they walk in on you when you're supposed to be doing a meeting, right? Not everybody's home is set up for people to have that environment where it is a business. And, my wife and I have worked from home since 1992. It's always been this way, okay? But again, I think a lot of it, but I work for myself and I don't need somebody looking over my shoulder. But I feel bad for those people who never experienced that camaraderie because they don't know what they missed. They don't know the high five or Friday afternoon. Hey, man, we killed it today. They don't know what it's like to go pour that cup of coffee together and man, I heard you had a rough time with that guy on the phone. Hey, man, don't worry about it. Let's move on.
As if sales becomes more transactional, right? It's just the number in your spreadsheet. It's not as a celebrated win as it was before, right? But
it used to be a game. It was an athletic event. It was a game. It was something people, but again, based on behavior styles. When you're people-oriented, and a lot of people get into sales are people-oriented, and now they're isolated. It sounds really good in the beginning, but then they start missing people, okay? And so I'm not saying, hey, look, do I think it's ever going to go back to where it was? No, it's never going to go back. But do I think there's going to be more turnover in sales than ever? I think turnover will hit record levels because they're missing some of the key ingredients, which is that association.
In sales, and you were right comparing it with sport. A lot of things depend on your personal motivation and your personal mindset, like where you are at right now and what kind of energy level you have. So, two different salespeople can sell differently the one product with the same benefit, but one can hit, like 300-400%, and one can just barely do that, right? And I think that, when you are in the office environment and within the sales team, you always can look out and look for the people that are those like leaders, those, like winners in a way. And then you can look at their behavior patterns, who they are, how they do, how they behave. You don't necessarily need to copy all of those guys, right? Because some people can be jerks, right? And that's fine. But you just kind of look at the patterns of sort of like the energy level that they get and why they get that, etc., just to learn. And I think that learning is more on the back end of things, not necessarily just purely drawing it, right? And I think that what's happening right now is when I work from home and I'm selling from home, when I fail or I just know how things work, I don't have anyone to look out for, right? I just can have my manager giving me feedback on my calls or reviewing my conversations or whatever, which is fine, but then it's not the same. So I think that because of that, as you mentioned, there's a turnover. So you cannot sell this product, you go to another company, then another company, and then you're not happy, then you're not self-confident that you can actually do that. And now you want to change the profession. So with this logic, do you think we are out of salespeople, good salespeople in the next 5-10 years? There will be so that the kind of, I would say like B2B or like sales executive or account executive as a profession would just go down and down and we get out of it?
That is a very interesting question. I don't know the answer to that. I do know this. Business people find a way. They find a way. I have a consulting company here in Orlando I work with, and they do consulting and staffing. And they tried 4 or 5 times to have salespeople, not the engineers, but salespeople remotely. And finally, one of the principals had me in for some coaching. And he said, am I wrong to just try to hire some local people, bring them in here, and create the right atmosphere? I said, no, I think you're right to do it. You've tried it the other way, right? I said, try it. But again, I think everything moves, everything adjusts. Everything. I think I get a lot of questions about how to hire good salespeople. I have a podcast called The Sales Edge, and we just found out it's ranked in the top 2.5% in the world, whatever that means. I don't know.
Congrats.
But number 388, 389, and 400 talk about how to attract and retain quality salespeople. I had one CEO as a guest. Then I did one that I had another guy who was in sales and sales management for 37 years. But you have to hire ambition and self-discipline and attitude, and then you got to be willing to train them on the skills. I don't care how good, I don't care, how much product knowledge that person has. If they don't have that ambition and self-discipline, and if they don't master the skills, they're not going to last. They're going to go do something else. And for a while, like you said, Michael, they're going to jump from product to product, and then eventually they're going to look in the mirror and say, it's not the product, it's me. And I believe, and I've seen this, companies that train consistently will always outperform companies that don't. You cannot train salespeople enough.
So now, if we touch base a little on business coaching, and then the value of coaching and the business coaching, any thoughts on the subject matter? It's like when you do it, how you do it right, with whom you do it, and just generally for whom you're doing it, right? Because you don't necessarily need to coach everyone, but is it like obviously based on the business model? But I never heard anyone coaching engineers, to be honest with you. Can you imagine engineers in the boot camp? So yeah.
I think,
so just generally.
Yeah, a couple things people should decide. First of all, there's a difference between coaching and training. Coaching to me is something you do more one-on-one. Training you do more in a group setting, but that's semantics. So when a person is considering whether to hire training or to get coaching, the first thing they have to do is assess what are the things I believe I need to get better at. And they need to write that down. Okay? They need to decide when they want to get those things taken care of. In other words, this is what I need to improve, and this is when, and this is why. Now, then they need to go out and they need to look at their options. They need to find somebody that, number one, they can call all their references and say, did you get your ROI? They need to find somebody that's going to teach in the methodology they want. You know, if they want transactional sales, they need to go with that company. If they want consultative, they need to go to that company. They need to do what's called a fresh fruit check. They need to make sure the trainer or the coach has done or is doing what they're training and coaching, has been successful at it, and when's the last time they closed a deal? Right? And so they need to be very, very careful as to who they're spending their time and money with.
Right.
And then they need to, if they hire somebody, they need to do all the prep work. They need to do what like for example, when we send out homework for the people who are coming to our boot camp. And the people that prepare way outshine the other ones, right? And then they have to decide, how am I going to measure if this was a good investment? So instead of just saying, I'm going to go get some coaching, I'm going to go get some training, they need to be really careful about who they're going to listen to. And, you know, in Orlando, every day there's free training and coaching all over the city. Well, you know what? People think because it's free, they should go to it. You know what? You're renting out your brain. Make sure whoever you sit in the room with, coaching or training, they are who you need and they can deliver results. Those are some ideas.
It's interesting. It's an interesting segue, because when you mentioned that people are insane just spending their time with people that not necessarily going to help them, right? And obviously time is one of the resources that we don't have in abundance, right? So we need to be very limited with the resources. I remember your quote. I actually have it written here. You said to me, time management doesn't work. Event management works. Can you explain?
We have a system called priority and time management, but first it's priorities. So setting your priorities, you can't manage time, but you can manage priorities. So when a person asks you to do something, hey, Michael, can you do this? Instead of making an emotional decision, if you've already set your priorities in place, right? Then you have to ask yourself, is that the best use of my time towards my objective? Instead of making present day decisions, we need to make future-based decisions. There's thousands of time management books out there, but the people who read those usually don't manage their time any better, right? And so even the way you do a things to-do list, most people don't do a things to-do list. They put reminders on their phone like they're a rat. You know, the bell rings, they go do something instead of, hey, what are the top things I need to get done today? So the last thing I do every day before I call it a day is I do tomorrow's things to do list and I make a call list. Okay? Everybody I'm going to call tomorrow is on that call list. When this recording is over, I'll go into my office and I've got my call list already and I'll get on the phone and I'll start, because today is a selling day for me, right? And so I think if we get into what priorities are the most important, right? Which one do I have to do? You do those first. But everything has to start with the end in mind. So what do I want to accomplish, by, when, and why? Because if you don't get that done, then every decision is hard to make.
So thinking about the future, moving towards your objective, are there anything else that you think worth mentioning about like how to prioritize the events that we have with our life?
There's five priorities.
Okay.
All right. The first ones are the urgent. You have to do them. If you don't get this done today, it can affect your business. It can affect your life.
Right.
Number two are important things. So after the urgents are done, now I can start working on my important list. Now you draw a line under that. Everything below that is optional. Above that is non-negotiable. Third one is I'd like to do that. I'd like to have lunch with Michael and build a relationship with him and may create future business. It's not a deal killer if I don't. The fourth one is delegated. There's certain things we don't need to do. Somebody else needs to do them. And the fifth one is eliminate. There are things that people do that should have been eliminated. So those are your 5 categories of your things to do list. And it's very simple when you look at your priorities, which ones have the most effect on the future.
But then the same way you're managing your business affairs or business events, you can manage your personal events as well,
Sure.
right? Like what's happening with your personal life. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely.
Is this the way your family operates? You're also very hands-on things and just prioritizing and going and...
Well, it has to. I mean, you can't live one way over here, and you can't. You'll break your brain. And, it's like health.
Yeah.
What you put in your mouth, right? I mean, what you watch, what you listen to. It's kind of living more intentionally and knowing that there's 3 things you do with time. You waste it, spend it, or invest it. And if people are really honest with themselves, they spend a lot of their times wasting time.
This mindset of prioritizing and being efficient and managing your events without obviously wasting time or resources. It's interesting because when you were telling me this, I was thinking, did Joe learn this or use this in his sport coaching, or did he use it when he started building his business? Because it's when you're building your company, the first thing you do is you learn how to prioritize, you learn how to be efficient and tie things, because there's so many things out there, right? And you wear many hats and you're running, and if you want this to work, you need to know what needs to be done first and urgently, right? So is this the mindset that you gain while already building the business, or that's the way the things are in college football when you're coaching?
Okay. If you know anything about sports, and I think you do, the kids have a vacation and they come back and there's a board. And what does it say? National championship. It doesn't say win sprints. It says end result. What do we want to accomplish? Right? Top-down thinking, you always start with the end in mind. So I began to think this way as a football coach. When I got into business, I can't tell you I did that initially, and I made a lot of mistakes, and finally I went, hold it. What you learned as a football coach will work here. What do you want to accomplish, by when, and why? And as long as everything is under integrity, there's certain things that are non-negotiable. We know what our non-negotiables are. Okay? I mean, from January 1st until yesterday, I have 164 formal proposals out. Now, understand, a formal proposal doesn't just go out. I wouldn't just send you one. I got to generate a lead. I got to pick up the phone. I have to book an appointment. Okay? I have to do my sales meeting. At the end of my sales meeting, I go, Michael, do you want a formal proposal? If you say no, you don't get one, which means those 160 plus formal proposals were not all the meetings I did.
Right.
That's non-negotiable, right? I don't have an agent. I sell. Therefore, I have to keep my proposals up to a certain level for us to generate the income we need to do what we need to do. And if everybody would learn non-negotiables of their business and their personal life, they would make less bad decisions.
I'm just thinking that, very often people are lucky with some of the events that are happening in their life. It's like, I had this idea, it worked, or it started working, and they start being very comfortable with themselves with regards to, hey, it worked. So they forget about what things needs to be done and consistency of those things, and you just actually doing them and managing them or prioritizing, because it's that like it's just all over the place, or are not prioritizing, or just going after each opportunity that arrives and not thinking about the numbers. Like I like what you mentioned about, I need to have 160 proposals to generate X number of businesses. I know my conversions. If I don't have those proposals out, then I won't have enough business later on. So I need to think about that 3 months in advance, 6 months in advance. It's going to be too late for me, right? Too late in the game.
Because here's the thing. If you're selling consultatively, 86% of all sales happens between the 6th and the 16th contact. 67% of population processes information slowly. So my goal is always to get at least 350 proposals out every year. Why? Because I know some are going to close now, some are going to close later, some are not going to close at all. Right? I have to have a lot in the funnel so I'm not constantly hammering people. That's not my style. I follow up. I mean, I closed a deal the other day that I started 10 years ago, okay? But it's a process. It's unemotional. But I also know in my office, there's no pictures of me with famous people. It's nothing but whiteboards. And one of the most important whiteboards are where those proposals are. And I look at it every day, which means I have to look at it and say, are we hitting our numbers? People make me laugh. People in sales make me laugh. They go, I never have enough time. All they do is sell. Well, I sell, but I also deliver. And if I could get that many out, you can if you have an efficient process, skills, and work ethic.
Can we stop for a second here? How do you, Joe, stay effective, efficient? Is it, do you have a specific routine? How do you okay, let's pause for a second. It's not about staying effective. It's about how do you recharge your batteries? Like, how do you actually keep being that for a longer period of time? Can you give any information on your routine, or I don't know, like diet or exercise, or just generally it's all about the mindset, and you just, by having internal energy, you can make this work? Or you have some external factors that...
First of all, I'm not going to cross any lines here, but I have a very deep faith. That's number one. Number two, I get up very early every morning. Number three, I eat extremely healthy. Okay? I eat a holistic diet. Okay? I'm very scheduled. I'm very routine-based. I think my style is not going to work for everybody. I'm not an ultra creative person. I don't get distracted by things. But also, in what's going on in the world today economically, people better keep their eye on the ball. And this is not a political statement. This is an economic statement. We are in the worst economy I've ever seen. Now, companies are scared to spend. People are afraid of taxes. We have got to do more work to get business than we've ever had to have. That doesn't mean it's not out there. It means we have to increase the repetitions. Knowing that, you don't want to get frustrated or negative. You just want to say, you know what? We're in an economy where it's tougher to get business. I just need to work more. So, I think, again, a lot of people are wired differently. I'm not afraid to work. I would tell people you better find something you like doing, because you're going to be doing it a long time anymore. The era of retirements is shrinking. The amount of people that can really retire. We see people that retired and going back to work now. Okay, so you really have to keep your eye on the ball in this economy.
It's a great answer. Thanks. I can definitely relate. So, all right. So I think I have one last question to ask, and I think we can wrap up. What have I not asked you right now that you think listeners would want to hear? Something that we missed.
I think, I think just like anything else, if you want to stick out right now, if you want to play in that upper 3 to 5%, number one, show up and work. Whether you're in your own business or you're working for somebody else, there is less competition right now of people that are willing to pay the price than I've ever seen in my lifetime, and I'm a whole lot older than you think I am. I've never seen it. So to stick out competitively is easier today. I would say be a person of tremendous personal and professional growth. Read, attend seminars, get that competitive edge. You know, any money you invest, even if your company doesn't, in your own development will come back to you tenfold. People spend more money on recreation than they do in their profession. I think that's important. I think you got to find what you want. You have to realize there's a price that you're going to have to pay for that. And so be willing to do it. And so I have a couple free gifts. Am I allowed to give them out?
Yes, if you can. What do we have for the people who listen to
First of
to
all,
this?
if they go to our second business, sellmorevirtually.com, and the first thing that's going to pop up is a free masterclass, the 8 essentials of sales success. It's a masterclass. It's about 30 or 40 minutes training. You'll get a lot out of that. Also, if you want some free stuff, take your cell phone out and put the word sales edge in. One word, SALESEDGE. Send that to 55678. If it breaks it up, put quotes around it. Some iPhones will break it up. It's got to be one word. When you send it, you're going to get a link to Pici and Pici. Hit the link, it'll take you to a splash page. There's free courses on there. There's also links to our podcast. Subscribe to the podcast, The Sales Edge. It's free. I think number 405 came out this week. It's a lot about business and sales. Those are all free resources. And one more thing, if you ever want to have a complimentary cup of Joe, call 407-947-2590. I answer my own phone calls, and I return every phone call same day, and we'll have a cup of Joe.
I'll take that offer for the masterclass after our conversation. Thanks, Joe. All right, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I was just thinking maybe I missed something that I was personally, interested in asking, but no, I think I covered the ground.
Well,
so
you have my phone number. I just gave it
Yeah.
out. If you ever want to just grab a cup of Joe, just call me.